Oh my, oh my. Some of us woke up to a very Murray Christmas this morning. I actually got to watch it live, but a lot of folks in my Twitter feed discovering Light No Fire being unveiled for the first time after 5 years of development. In this video, we're going to talk about everything that we know about this game from a Hello Games standpoint. We're going to cover all the information that has been released from Hello Games, and then of course we're going to talk about some useful information about how Hello Games operates for those of you who don't really understand Hello Games or were never part of the No Man's Sky party. And of course, my take and reaction on Light No Fire. All of that and more right here in the LZ. My fellow travelers, Sean Murray came dropping nukes at the Game Awards last night, and of course, he brought a double feature when it came to a tease at what's to come for 2024 for No Man's Sky. Check the card up top for my coverage today for that information. Train keeps rolling on that game, of course. But you have probably clicked this video wanting to know more about Light No Fire, a very interesting looking game that you're very curious about, and so am I. Before we get into my take and my thoughts, let's talk about what we do know and what is obvious about Light No Fire. So there's actually a Steam page in existence right now for that game that you can go and wish list the game right now. And the description reads as follows. Light No Fire is a game about adventure, building, survival, and exploration together set on a fantasy planet the size of Earth. It brings the depth of the role-playing game to the freedom of a survival sandbox. It mentions Earth a lot, which actually has a lot of parallels with No Man's Sky because a lot of folks were just like, can I find Earth in No Man's Sky? So a lot of interesting parallels here. A multiplayer Earth, carve a life together, meet players from across the globe, build a life, explore, and survive together, construct persistent buildings, which means you build it and it stays there, and communities, or strike out alone to discover the world for others. A procedural Earth. For those of you who are uninitiated, Hello Games operates in procedural generation, which means algorithms are producing the landscape that you're inhabiting. It was a very big feature of No Man's Sky, and it's a lot like Minecraft as well, where these mathematics are just building the landscape for you. So a lot of what you see here is not crafted by hand, but crafted by math. Of course, the character models, rocks and trees and things like that, those were built by hand, but most of what you see here is done procedurally. A truly open world with no boundaries at a scale never attempted before, a massively varied and dense planet filled with immersive biomes. We're going to come back to that here in a second. Unique enemies and valuable resources to discover. So, biomes, right? A big complaint that No Man's Sky players had about No Man's Sky was that planets were all just one biome, right? You have more than 18 quintillion planets in the No Man's Sky universe, and they are all, what you've landed on it, that's the biome that you have seen, right? If it's a desert planet, well then the whole thing is desert. What's interesting about this now is that this one planet is going to carry additional biomes or like new immersive biomes that you can just happen upon, right? That's something that we've been crying about for No Man's Sky in our community for years. And so now I can just move from a lush forest to, you know, a snowy landscape or something like that. That sounds really awesome to me. A fantasy Earth. It seems like this time they've moved away from the sci-fi aesthetic of, what Hello Games generally has been known for in the last decade. Light No Fire presents you with an ancient Earth to uncover, one where you're not the hero. I don't understand the thing about that. I don't know. Anyway, thick with lore, mystery, and a constant fight for survival, inspired by the adventure, charm, and imagination that we love from classic fantasy. So, I was a little bit worried at first. I'm not one that loves medieval things, right? Unless there's a hook to it. This isn't entirely medieval, I don't think. This is, when they say fantasy, I like that more because it isn't just, swords and bows and arrows, but, there's an actual hook to it, right? I hate medieval stuff, but I love Dark Souls and the Dark Souls games for existence because it has a hook to it, right? There's a hard gameplay, there's a darkness to it, there's a visceral environment about it, whereas this has a fantasy environment that is really piquing the curiosity, and it comes with also a dash of mystery to it, like with some of the structures and things that you see in the gameplay there. An unexplored Earth has every mountain can be climbed, and below them lies endless vistas, oceans, and continents perhaps no others have seen. Who will climb the tallest mountains? Who will find the deepest seas? Set sail across vast oceans and rivers? Ride wild beasts through fantastic landscapes? Fly dragons over undiscovered landscapes? Okay, I know we've done the you can climb that mountain over there meme in a cringe manner, right? This was something that has been happening since the initial reveal of Skyrim 75 years ago, right? So I do get a little bit of a cringe when I read that, but consider the context here. Games like Skyrim and Far Cry and those kinds of games, those games were created by hand. That mountain that you see over there that you can climb to the top of still exists in a very limited space. What Hello Games and Sean Murray are selling here is that you see that mountain over there, you can climb it. Oh, and once you're up there, do you see that mountain way over there? You can go to that mountain too. And so on and so forth, and you can circle an entire globe. Now, this description doesn't really give itself, or at least Hello Games, the credit they deserve, because when you say a truly open world with no boundaries at a scale never attempted, that's a little disingenuous because Hello Games had attempted it and did deliver on that, right? One of the most impressive things about No Man's Sky is that when you see a planet, you can land on the planet and then you could literally circumference the planet. You can literally circumnavigate the whole planet. People have done it before. I've seen folks like Cobra TV have live streams where they just literally from start to finish just start at a point and then circle the whole globe and then come back to that point. It is possible. And so this piques my interest because now I want to get into my thoughts about what I'm seeing. First off, I asked a question on Twitter the other day. The question was, can Hello Games capture the same lightning in the bottle that No Man's Sky was for them, right? If you were there 10 years ago at the VGX when, you know, a little shriveled up, very nervous Sean Murray is on live streams explaining what this game is, you know, when we saw that first trailer, there was an allure that for me personally, I couldn't escape. It was the game that stole the show. Nothing else from that show mattered. Now we look at the Video Game Awards and this trailer is delivering a lot of what that first trailer did. Actually, there's a lot of fun callbacks. Like when the camera's painting under the water with the characters swimming and things. And that reminds me of the very first trailer, right? And then you sort of, in a first-person perspective, kind of climb out of the water to view this vista that it reveals. There are so many parallels to No Man's Sky here. If you have played No Man's Sky or you play No Man's Sky regularly, you feel right at home, right? At least that's my thought. But what I'm also seeing here is, if you look back at the initial reveal trailer for No Man's Sky, which No Man's Sky doesn't even look like that anymore. It's been 8 years, is a wild difference. What I see in this Light No Fire trailer is a team who has been together for over a decade, perfecting their craft. I see a studio and a game made by a studio who knows what they're doing. Not that they didn't know before, but you can see it now that they have fine-tuned their craft. It looks like they could be using the same engine that No Man's Sky could be using, right? It just has that vibe. It has that aesthetic to it. But what I also see is beautiful lighting. I see trees and grass that are moving in the wind. Trees don't even move in No Man's Sky, which is, you know, kind of takes away from the immersion and the beauty factor. Here, I just see beautiful vistas. I see animation that is fluid and realistic. I've seen some of the reactions from like Syrian Gaming and Jason Plays where they were asking the same questions that I was asking as I was pounding my table when this trailer was airing live, screaming, "What is that? What is that? What is that?" So if I go back to the question of, does this sort of rekindle the magic that the reveal of No Man's Sky did? And I think yes, because now what a trailer like this does is it has given me a lot of questions. The same thing and a lot of the same questions that I got from the No Man's Sky reveal. What do you do in this game? Now, I know we have since answered that question, but you still have people that ask it because they're either ignorant deliberately or they just genuinely haven't been exposed. A lot of people are still buying No Man's Sky with every new update because they're like, that's neat. I heard about this game before, had a trouble launch, but what's going on here? This is crazy looking. This is a culmination of that now. And some of those questions like, what do you do in this game? What can I find in this game? This also brings up other questions like combat, right? A few of the words, one of the words they used quite a lot in this was enemies, survival, valuable resources. How is that going to manage? right? Because No Man's Sky combat was pretty simplistic, right? And it did see some evolution over the years where the combat's fantastic now. It has spectacle, it is strategic. Enemies are no longer just flying around waiting for, waiting to be shot. So now we're getting into a fantasy setting dealing with swords and bows and arrows and staves and maybe magic and stuff like that. That would be really, really cool. That's an aspect that they have to nail, because unfortunately, one of the things that No Man's Sky has infinitely suffered with is an infinite lack of gameplay, right? There is a point where you can pick up No Man's Sky and be like, ooh, and this is awesome, and this is a vibe, and then it nosedives pretty quickly. If you're not in it for the ooh and the and you're thirsting for something more, like a gameplay loop and something that hooks you and keeps bringing you back in and addicts you, then the game will struggle with the same thing that No Man's Sky struggles with, which is just that lack of engagement. Also, as a warning, if you are new to this game, right? If you saw Light No Fire and you're unaware of Hello Games, you were unaware of No Man's Sky, let me give you an idea of what is about to happen. Light No Fire will most likely launch in a very basic format. Something that you can expect, though, is that the game will see a ton of updates over several years. No Man's Sky is 8 years old, or going on 8 years old, and has gotten like 20-some free updates. Hello Games has never asked for a penny beyond the asking price of the game. Hello Games love what they do, and if they're interested in what they're doing, they will keep doing it. They don't make games to make money. They make games because they love it and they have communities, and then those communities support them financially by continuing to buy the game. And the game is also, at least No Man's Sky is, available on every viable platform imaginable. One thing that you're also going to see, though, if you're a part of the community and you're hoping for regular communication, you're not going to get it here. Sean Murray and team are a vibe. They love to just sort of make games and just kind of talk to you through patch notes in revealed trailers and things like that, right? They're not very good at engaging the community directly, right? There's not a whole lot of responding to tweets and emails and things like that, right? There's a lot of one-way communication, but they do hear your feedback, right? They do read Twitter, they do read their forums, they do engage in bug fixing and things like that an overwhelming majority of the time. It's just a very one-way communication. So if that's something that you should really consider, that's how this team operates, just because there's a lot of shitheads in the gaming community that don't know how to act, and really they don't have time for it, and I don't blame them, right? The No Man's Sky launch for them was rough, and they were just like, you know what, this is how we're going to deal with feedback going forward. It is what it is. But I am intrigued. I have more questions than answers. I have the same questions that I have for No Man's Sky, right? Can I go to the polls and freeze my tail off? Can I fight big bosses and go on dungeon raids? And this is something that I want to caution you with. And this is for regular No Man's Sky players or people who've never experienced No Man's Sky or Hello Games at all. Be careful where your expectations are. The kind of game that we're looking at here is the same kind of game that No Man's Sky is, right? As a matter of fact, this is essentially No Man's Sky 2 without the sci-fi aesthetic and the ships and things like that. It is the same very basic concept, and it's going to generate a lot of questions. You are going to ask the same questions I've asked in this video. What do you do in this game? Can you do this thing? Can you do that thing? What about this thing or that thing? You won't get many answers to it, and a lot of what we have found at launch for No Man's Sky, and actually subsequently for a lot of the additional updates that's come over 8 years for that game, is in your mind over hyping what a thing is, having over expectation. My advice to you for anything that Hello Games puts out, it's good advice, it's healthy advice, it's to their credit and it's to yours, is to have no expectation. Take what you see at face value and then learn to be shocked at what you discover after. A game like this has a way of churning the imagination to really tickle kind of what you want in a game, and then that game may not deliver on those things, and you're going to find yourself downvoting it or complaining on Twitter or forum somewhere. I had expectations for this game, and honestly, it's expectations that the studio didn't give you. At least not after the No Man's Sky launch. What you're also looking at is a game that has been developed by a room full of people. A small room of people, like a dozen people. It is insane the amount of work that these people can do to make a game look like a AAA experience that a large studio like Bethesda takes as many years to cook up. But of course, more reactions and more coverage from yours truly about this game here in the LZ. Of course, more No Man's Sky, more Light No Fire. This game has piqued my interest, and I'm here for the ride, day one. Another question that's come up is, what platforms will this game be available on? The answer is really we don't know. Right now, the only place that you can find this game is on Steam, as you know, you're able to wish list it, right? But there's not much else by that. Also, the team didn't answer as to what platforms it will be available on. So my conjecture, naturally, would be that the game will at least be available on PC and at least one console. Hello Games has had a history of launching on a couple of different consoles first, and then with subsequent updates making it available on each additional new console. Because right now, and my biggest hope is that they don't launch it on last-gen console. Can we please make this available not on PS4 and Xbox One? Leave the past behind. Kill it if you have to. Because I do think previous generation consoles do hold No Man's Sky and No Man's Sky's vision back quite a bit. And you can definitely see how that shines on the current gen consoles that we are on PS5 and Xbox Series. So also, Nintendo has a new console on the way too, that is not the Switch, is Switch 2 or Super Nintendo Switch or whatever they're calling it, that they'll probably eventually bring this out on as well. One other big concern is, what about multiplayer? This is a big multiplayer experience that's going to create, at least in the No Man's Sky community, quite a bit of concern, because while No Man's Sky was not necessarily launched with multiplayer in mind, at least that's my read on it, multiplayer came about a year and 2 years after, at least the initial launch, but it has been severely limited, and even to this day is still limited. I mean, you can encounter other players. You can see other players. You can, if you want, go adventuring with other players. However, there is very little incentive to do that. And historically, even more concerning to me is that Hello Games, when something breaks multiplayer-wise, might take them weeks to get it resolved. And that's a little bit of a red flag to me. That's hopefully something that they are addressing for this game. And I'm curious as to the scope, like how many players can play together? Can everybody just literally fit on a planet and that's that? And are there instances, or how does that work? And then one incentive, because right now, even though multiplayer exists in No Man's Sky, I don't play with other people because I don't find any incentive to do that. The game doesn't reward me for doing that. You can't do special things multiplayer-wise that you can't do yourself, which is the basic things that you already do in No Man's Sky. You're just with other people doing it. It doesn't really benefit me in any way, so I usually play by myself. So is that going to be my experience with Light No Fire as well when that launches, or am I going to be encouraged to play with other people? If I find a giant dungeon over here and it would benefit me to take other people with me because it's hard, I would like to do that. As a matter of fact, I would like to be able to be like, hey, I tried this dungeon. It's terrible. It kicked my ass. Hey, person over there, would you like to come over and help me beat this dungeon and grab the loot at the end, and I'll share that loot or whatever, etc., etc. That's the kind of world that I'm hoping they're building. But like I said, manage your expectations. Let your expectations be surprised at launch. My friends, if this was helpful to you and your Light No Fire experience, help the LZ out with a like and hang out for future videos when I talk more about No Man's Sky content and Light No Fire content here on the channel. So great to have you, and see you in the next one.